They say that you can bury a Glock pistol in the dirt, dig it up a year later, and it'll fire just like new. But even more durable is the love many Americans carry for this particular brand of gun. It has been 98 days since the Sandy Hook massacre reignited a fundamental American debate on personal firepower. And in that time, gun control advocates have seen their hopes for change run smack into that durable passion for everlasting weaponry. To understand how it got this way, it helps to understand the rise of the Glock. Attractive girl in tight pajamas settles in for a cozy night. But, cue the creepy music, a scary man is lurking outside. She grabs her Glock semi-automatic handgun, and the tension builds. Now, in the real world, one study found that women living with a gun are almost 3 times more likely to be shot to death. And in 2010, 16 times more women were killed by men they knew than by strangers. But in the world according to Glock, just the sight of their fearsome weapon is enough to roll the invading stranger's eyes back in his head without even firing a shot.
Somebody picked the wrong girl.
This ad has been viewed hundreds of thousands of times online, to mostly rave reviews among YouTube commenters. But in reality, this is a company that really doesn't need to advertise at all. They don't need to post videos like this one on their website, because Glock is already America's favorite so-called super gun, among good guys and bad, on screen and off.
Between your faith and my Glock 9mm, I take my Glock.
It gets the approval of Arnold in End of Days, and Tommy Lee Jones in U.S. Marshals.
You have a backup weapon?
Never had the need.
Get yourself a Glock. Lose that nickel-plated sissy pistol.
You know, see, grab your Glocks when you see Tupac.
Tupac Shakur was among the many rappers who sang the glories of this brand before a Glock was used to murder him at age 25. Congresswoman Gabby Giffords was not only shot by a Glock in Tucson, but still carries one of her own.
Indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And while Adam Lanza carried a Glock into Sandy Hook Elementary, it is also standard issue of the FBI and around 65% of American cops. Yes, what Colt and Remington were to America's Wild West, Glock is to this country's violent present. And that's amazing, since it's only around 30 years old and comes from Europe. But its rise is a stark lesson in just how difficult any form of gun control could be going forward. It all begins in the 80s, in the suburbs of Vienna, when a guy named Gaston Glock decided to move from making knives and curtain rods in his garage metal shop to making guns for the Austrian army. He'd never made a pistol before, so he asked expert shooters what they wanted and came up with a game-changing design. By using mostly composite plastic instead of steel, Glock created a weapon that is light and tough, with a very easy trigger pull and no cumbersome thumb-activated safety. The first model had the capacity to shoot 17 bullets, almost 3 times as many as a typical revolver, as fast as you could pull the trigger. And when it hit the US market in the 80s, Glock made the brilliant decision to first offer them to police departments, just when the crack cocaine wars were heating up and cops felt vulnerable. Another group that showed early interest, Hollywood prop masters who loved the futuristic look. As Paul Barrett writes in his book, Glock, The Rise of America's Gun, shootouts on the set of Law & Order were soon featuring this new Austrian import.
Some of the American companies were a little bit more persnickety, wanting to know, will our guns be in the hands of good guys or only bad guys? And Glock just said, go ahead, put it in the movies.
We don't care.
Right.
That punk pulled a Glock 7 on me. You know what that is? It's a porcelain gun made in Germany. Doesn't show up on your airport x-ray machines here, and it costs more than you make in a month.
Almost every part of that little speech in Die Hard 2 is factually wrong. But when real lawmakers began voicing real fear that an undetectable super gun was hitting America, sales skyrocketed. And even when a 1991 shooting spree in Texas led to the assault weapons ban, Barrett says Glock saw an opportunity.
When the law was enacted, it was enacted with a grandfathering clause, meaning that everything that existed before the day of enactment was still legal. This left Glock with this huge supply of pre-ban equipment that was still legal to sell, which the company then dribbled out over time. The dark glamour of the Glock, went up because gun aficionados resented the restrictions and said, well, that's the gun they don't want me to have, I want 2 of them.
Thanks to a perfectly legal trade-in program, Glock is able to resell used police guns and magazines on the open market, even at a time when cops are desperate to get semi-automatic handguns off the streets.
A lot of departments cash-strapped, looking for money. It is a way of ensuring that their officers are equipped with the best and latest tools of the trade.
In a statement, Glock points out that allowing law enforcement agencies to trade in firearms towards the purchase of new duty weapons is a standard practice by all major firearms manufacturers. But you have to think that there's a possibility that a cop could have his old Glock pointed at him at some point.
Exactly. That's why I've never been in favor of that type of program, but oftentimes it's not even necessarily in the hand of the chief of police.
Bratton thinks banning buyback programs would be a political impossibility, and much to the frustration of gun control advocates, just the talk of another slaughter and tougher laws puts more guns into circulation. So whichever way the political winds blow, Glock is proof that it's always a good time to be in the gun business.